So is the Epstein case closed? The DOJ says yes. A lot of people say, sorry, that's not going to cut it. There's still more that there has to be answered for. There are more questions that are out there. And I know we spent a couple of days now in the news talking about this issue. It's because the DOJ released this memo, and the memo was not helpful if you think the purpose of it was to restore faith in the DOJ's willingness to be transparent about this. Saying you're transparent is not the same thing as being transparent. Now, I want to break this down and be very clear about this because passions run very high on this issue. I understand that. I have thought that there was a lot, and still think that there's a lot that we don't know about the Epstein case in terms of connections, in terms of co-conspirators, in terms of perhaps external influences or forces on all of this. And let me break down what I mean by that. I see this at a few levels. There's the memo and the management of this as it pertains to public expectations. Okay, so let's break this down this way. I'm even going to make a note of this as I'm talking about it so I don't skip past this. There's the memo and the management. Okay, there's the DOJ justice good faith issue. And then there's the questions I still want answers for. Okay, now let's start with this because it's the easiest one. The handling of this has not been good by the Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now, I understand she has said she misspoke on that Fox News show, or rather, it was misinterpreted what she meant when she said, I have it on my desk. She meant all the Epstein stuff is on her desk. I also want to be clear that President Trump today was asked about this, and he's just sick of hearing about this at all. He doesn't want to hear about it, and he really tried to shut the whole thing down during his lengthy cabinet meeting.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration. But
okay, so we've got Trump saying, why are you even talking about this? And you could tell lost patience with the whole thing. Pam Bondi has put herself in a tough spot with this one because we had people that were brought to influencers who were brought to the White House, given binders, and there was a whole Epstein transparency thing. There was nothing new in those binders as we found out, and as I knew all along. And I didn't think there would be any big revelations from the Epstein files this whole time. I've always thought that there was. Now I want to get into why I think that. I'll get to that in a moment. But still, the way that this was handled by the DOJ has not been tactful, has not been helpful to answering the public's questions and making people think that this is truly case closed. I don't think that's beyond dispute at this point because you've got the White House saying, basically, shut up, we've told you everything, I don't want to hear it anymore. And a lot of people out there are saying, well, hold on a second. I'm not buying it. Doesn't add up to me here. I'm not buying it. So that's the first part of it. The memo and the management of expectations has been a mess. And you could say, oh, Buck, what should they have done differently? It should have been announced that there would be a presentation, a press conference by the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. It should have been a statement that was more fulsome than one was put out, that little memo. It should have addressed the outlying questions. And it should have been open to the press to ask questions then and there. This little memo that they dropped, which felt very perfunctory, just the bare minimum, and like they didn't feel that like they really had to deal with very much. That was not good. That was not helpful. Now we can get into the DOJ side of this, of the case, the Epstein case. I'm going to get to unanswered questions in a second, the Epstein case. But first up, our sponsor here is Birch Gold. And as you know, the big, beautiful bill passed. There's a lot of good stuff coming in the Trump economy. The Trump economy is already really cooking, and I think it's going to get even better. But he's only in office for 4 years. And the $37 trillion in debt we have is not going away. Purchasing power has been going down for years and years now because of the excessive spending. And you need to find ways to protect your wealth and to diversify. That's where gold comes in. It's time for you to get some gold to hedge against inflation, economic instability, and the long-term challenges we have to the dollar. And Birch Gold is who I trust to do this for you. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. Okay? Birch Gold Group. Text my name, Buck, to 989898. Birch Gold to help you with a free, no-obligation info kit. Text my name, Buck, to 989898 today. Birch Gold Group, they are the best in the business at this. All right, now, my friends, now we are going to look at the DOJ side of this. Now, here's the thing. The handling of this by the DOJ up to this point in time has been abominable, right? Now, I mean, pre-Trump era. I'm saying the way that this was handled, the inability to. I mean, Epstein. They're telling us now had 1,000 victims, and got away with this for what, almost 20 years, at least. 1,000 victims, and no one could prosecute this guy. No one wanted to prosecute this guy, except an absolute sweetheart deal by the Florida Attorney General, Florida U.S. Attorney at the time, federal, and so much so that he had to step down from the Trump administration later when it came out that he had given Epstein this sweetheart deal. This, my friends, is just crazy that this is how it went. They didn't really get after Epstein until 2019, raiding the homes in the Bahamas and New York and Palm Beach. The Justice Department, if what they're saying right now is true, and I know a lot of you, and we'll get to the unanswered questions here in a second. If what they're saying is true, it means that one of the most egregious serial pedophile monsters of our lifetime was able to act with relative impunity for decades and rub shoulders, so to speak, with some of the wealthiest, most powerful people on the planet over many of those years. And it was only when there was a public outcry back, because of the Miami Herald expose, basically, in 2019, and 2019 things get rolling again, and they decide they had to do something. How could this guy have gotten away with it for so long? This is, again, put aside any conspiracy or outside actor or anything else. I'm going to get to that in a second. That he was able to do this. What does it say about our justice system? And think about the single-minded ferocity with which the federal law enforcement agencies went after nonviolent J6 protesters. I understand, very different, right? One is, one guy's a sex criminal, something. These are different cases. Yeah, but my point is the focus of resources. They had something like, what was it, 30% of the FBI agents were at least involved in some way in January 6 cases. People that walked into the building, took photos of themselves. They have resources and time for that, but for years and years and years, no resources to go after Jeffrey Epstein. What does this say about our justice system? Again, I mean this in the most macro, general level. Do we have a justice system? They're supposed to prevent things like this. The most important things the justice system can really do: protect our physical being from assault, from murder, from rape, from sexual assault, from someone who's preying upon children sexually. This is the most important stuff the state can do. And they failed this badly for this long? This is, I think, a big part of why people are so, rightly so outraged, so angry about all this. And now we're just told, and he killed himself in the Manhattan Correctional Center, the MCC. The only person who was ever able to do that, the person who should have been on the highest level of suicide watch of probably any inmate they've ever had in that facility. And they've had lots of really bad ones, I know. But in terms of the sense that if this guy gets off in custody, Epstein, there are going to be a lot of people that don't accept that this just and they let it happen. Just unthinkable that they could be. And I know the guy fell asleep in the camera. And now they're saying, and they said this today, 60-second hole in the surveillance footage. But it's a hole that's there every night. Well, a lot can happen in 60 seconds. So what the heck is that all about? And why didn't they tell us that in the memo beforehand? No, people had to find it. Again, mismanagement. Mismanagement, DOJ failure. Okay, so there's mismanagement, there's DOJ failure, and now we get to, unanswered questions coming up next. Our sponsor here is Paradigm Press. There's something under American soil that has a value to it in the trillions of dollars, 160 trillion to be more precise. It's been there forever. This is not new. This endowment is so large it could pay off our national debt 4 times over. Now, thanks to a Supreme Court decision, the Trump administration could soon release that endowment to the public. Jim Rickards, former advisor to the White House and Federal Reserve, says if you're over 50, this could be your best chance to build lasting wealth from a once-in-a-century event. It's a big statement. To hear more of what Jim has to say, go online to birthright2025.com. That's birthright2025.com to get the details free of charge, paid for by Paradigm Press. Now, the questions that I have that are unanswered. The biggest one, Pam Bondi was asked today. She was asked about, or rather, she spoke to the issue of, was there any foreign intelligence connection for Epstein? They say they don't know of one.
February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Okay. Now, you may disregard, or rather you may completely disagree and say that's bull crap. He's running a blackmail operation. Clearly had, that had been what I had thought this whole time. And I am not convinced otherwise. Now, that doesn't mean that the people who have come forward on this are lying. They may not know. Pam Bondi said, not that we have no evidence to that effect. Is it possible that this guy, Epstein, who had so much money and so much access to very powerful people, could fly all over the world in his private jet, is it possible, is it even likely that he had some contact with intelligence services? Yeah, it's very possible for sure. I mean, we can debate whether or not it would be likely or just possible. It's definitely possible. So much so that they cannot rule it out. So there's what they know and there's what they don't know. And they're saying they don't know of any intelligence nexus with Epstein. I find that hard to believe. Rather, that he didn't have one. They may not know. Now, you might think that's a huge cover-up, and I understand that. But think about who you're implying then as part of the cover-up. That's really that's heavy. I'll just say it that way. That's heavy, and I don't. I know some of the people who are involved. I know some of them personally at the top level of DOJ and the FBI, and I think these are very good people and they're patriots. And I would never allow anyone in my presence to disparage the patriotism or the ethics of Director Patel or Deputy Director Bongino. I don't know Pam Bondi, but she has a very good reputation. So, I think that people should be careful before they cast any aspersions here about who would be involved in this stuff. I'm just going to say that. But now for unanswered questions, right? So I dealt with the intel component of this, or the intel agency connection might be there. Where did the money come from again? He was handling money for people, financial advisor. You don't make $600 million like that. Sorry. That's just not. No. And trading the market, please. It's preposterous. And I've heard people say, oh, no, they've explained where the money came from. Not in a way that makes any sense. Not in a way that's credible or believable. So I still has not been explained to me how this guy also was given, I think, a $60 million, or it depends on how you want to value it, but, it's given a mansion in New York City. Given a mansion. Do you know anybody else? You ever heard of anyone else given a mansion by a non-family member or not a husband or a wife situation? Given a mansion? Okay. So that's very strange. I also have a problem with the belief that is being put forward now that the only person, remember, Epstein was accused of trafficking a young girl who came out. She's now passed away as an adult, but she accused a member of the British royal family, rather, of sleeping with her while she was being trafficked by Epstein. And we're to believe he was the only one? He was the only guy of all the people Epstein was affiliating with, the only person who engaged in sexually criminal conduct. I find that very, very hard to believe. So why are we being told that? That is also a part of this that I think is unanswered. And also, why did the U.S. Attorney Acosta say he belongs to intelligence? We know that's a matter of record. Why did he give Epstein a plea deal that included unnamed co-conspirators? Not a thing that happens in federal law or federal plea bargains any other time I've ever heard of. And I've asked federal prosecutors who have been doing it for decades. They say, no, that's not something you do. Why was Acosta quoted as saying that Epstein should be, quote, left alone? Because, he belongs to intelligence. No one's ever seemed to answer this. So, yeah, I have unanswered questions, and I'm not satisfied with where this investigation has been left off. So we'll continue to look, continue to ask those questions. Thanks for being here with me. Shields high.